Hi, Mark. Thank you so much for joining me in this podcast episode. Really appreciate it. How are you doing today?
Great, man. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, the pleasure is mine. I'm super excited to learn more about yourself. And also, the topic in our hand is about your seminar. You're going to do the event is the voice activated. So, we're going to learn more about that as well. So, before that, I'd love to know more about how did your entrepreneurial journey started? Like, when did you come up with the idea, like, I need to start my own business or do something for myself rather than working on a 9 to 5 or employed by someone else?
Sure, absolutely. Well, I'm a bit of a freak example. I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. I'm that guy that started out cutting the neighbor's lawn when I was 13 and mostly, almost completely been self-employed for all of
Yeah.
those years. I'm 55 now, so 40 plus years. And, consider myself, had a good friend describe me once as psychologically unemployable.
Yeah, that's great. So 40 years of experience in business, right? So yeah, that's the thing. Like I hear when like someone start very early age 13, age 10, age 8, especially mostly on the US and like a third world country, because you get some kind of motivation, like is land of opportunity when you say like you're living in America and you're gonna start doing your own thing and things like that. Unlikely in UK, I have barely see anyone like age 11, age 13 doing any kind of like a entrepreneurial anything. So that's like a very very niche and probably few like less than a 0.1% of them children if influenced by their parents they go and now do that. And I started my journey like age 11, like started working with my dad, learning the business and everything. So when that got into like a once, then it's really really hard to working for someone else. And I worked for like a couple of years. I had no choice because moving to UK I had to start everything from scratch. But in your case, you've been there for 40 years of doing your own business. So what do you think, over the years, the lesson you have learned, like what would be like a number one lesson you say like you have learned?
Ooh, man. I would say that I think that all of life for everybody it comes back to how you handle fear, which could be described as anxiety, and lots of people can touch on it different ways. But to me, the bottom line is fear and your ability to manage it. It doesn't go away. It's just
Yeah.
your ability to manage it. And I think that's what you learn over all these years as an entrepreneur. And I think that's the reason why people don't do it is that they have this perception of safety and, with a job and a paycheck and all that.
Yeah, that's totally agree on that. So that's the way it is, isn't it? So and also like I've been in the business, I'll say about 20 years now. So obviously half of that or you got experience in. And with me saying like a lot of things has been changed and a lot of business owners, especially during the COVID, I'll say like a lot of business gone out of business just because of like they just gave up on not to learn, not because of like they want to stop the business. They just gave up on not to learn about new technology, adopting a new way like doing business. The restaurant business used to be more reliant on like sitting people inside. Now is more relying on like taking deliveries out with the Uber Eats and things like that. So it's always like the evolving thing. And the more people we need to understand, like right now is the AI coming in and things like that. So every businesses have to adapt to the new changes as well. So the business thing is obviously is going to be changed all the time, and we as entrepreneurs we have to change. So I'm not going to go that far too much on the entrepreneurial journey and side of it. So let's just talk about now the topic we have our hand, which is like you're going to be on the program you said you're going to do. So that is like a voice activated. So if you can explain a little bit about what is it about and what does it actually mean for like our listeners?
Sure, absolutely. Well, if you don't mind, I want to go back to COVID just a little bit because
Sure.
it gives context. So for the 10 years leading up to COVID, my primary business was running live events, live conferences for business up into COVID. And so much like the restaurant business, that business was completely annihilated
Yeah.
by the beginning of COVID. Lots of people who were doing events shifted to virtual and all of that. I decided I didn't want to do that. I sort of embraced that moment of change and was looking for a pivot, ready to do the next thing, which goes back to that, managing fear and
Mm.
embracing change is a big, big part of that. But anyway, so I went down this journey tour, which has led me to the place where I'm at now, where podcasting, and I have a book coming out, and a newsletter and YouTube, and all of these ways to bring my voice into the digital space, which of course you're doing also. And so I have a particular leaning towards Christians, or people of faith, we'll say any faith really, um, and helping them use all of those tools to bring their voice forward. And so that's what Voices Activated is going to be about, as a virtual conference, but then also a live conference coming up in December, and helping entrepreneurs to package all of those pieces to bring their voice forward. And now that could be any voice, but I particularly, have this leaning towards people of faith who want to have their faith come forward in their business voice, in their podcast, and writing a book and a newsletter, YouTube, all of the modern tools of the digital age. And because of what I've gone through in the last couple of years, and spent hundreds of thousands of dollars, and grinded my life out building all of those channels, and I thought, oh man, I want to help people do
Yeah,
that in a way and where they don't step on the landmine. So that's what Voices Activated is going to be.
interesting. And that's quite different than normally live events is about, right? It just like you're bringing in the faith involved in it. This is that thing, like people like to have like a business and their faith in a different entity right now. So they don't want to talk about it. And even though they talk about it, someone like a come to the podcast, they are very, very like stepping back to mention about the God, stepping back, mentioning about like wherever they faith in. Someone could be Hindu, someone is Muslim, someone Christian, someone is Jewish. So they have everyone got their different religious view, the faith, superpower, whatever they believe in, and everyone should be like express it. And we often like when it comes to media, like you've been in a lot of podcasts and you've been hosting a podcast and you've been seeing it, and we see it as well on the television as well. When someone wants to be like talking about faith and they just step back, it's just like a too taboo to not to talk about that topic. But this is like a majority of us like got some kind of faith, and everyone is different and everyone's believing it, and we go through the anxiety, depression, and everything. There is always a higher power. Like I know, like you believe in it and I believe in it. Could be like we say like a different name of the God. Like I say Allah, you be Jesus. So that's a different way. But we got shut down on that. Nowadays, like we talk about like LGBTQ and things like that. It's gone extreme media, but things always been the years and years. The religion itself, like we just got shut down. So how important is like bringing uh, religion into a business? Like you probably know, like a Dave Ramsey in US, like he always talks about Christianity, faith, and how he followed through, like not to get into like a mortgage interest and things like that. How Bible says and things. It matches like a really really well with like our Islamic point of view as well. And he brought his Christianity faith into business, and he publicly saying it. But not many people, not many entrepreneurs or like a media professional are not saying that. So with that, like your live event and the program, do you want to like want people to come and express their faith and talk about that more?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that I've been a person of faith for most of my life, and certainly in the last 20 years in particular. And but over these last couple of years, I've just become deeply convicted in the idea that what I think about my faith should be at the front of every conversation, and I want to encourage you and others to take that same position. And I think, if you go back in time, hundreds of years ago, that's how it was. Maybe even 50 years ago, that's how it was more. And in our modern culture, that's sort of been pushed to the side and siloed, as I think you said, as well, I have my faith, but it's over there, and I don't talk about it in the business space. But I think if you have a faith, and the deeper that faith is, the more that shows me, who you are, shows me your heart. When I meet you and I talk to you at a conference or wherever, I want to know, like, what do you think, and where are you really coming from? And then the business comes too. So it's a little bit of a different style, but even if you are not interested in the faith conversation, Voices Activated will still help you, because what I'm saying is that we're in a world now where, and this
Yeah.
podcasts, book writing, these tools are the tools that are needed. And so the conference is about, how do I, if I haven't done any of those things, how do I get my book in this space? How do I start my podcast? How do I do those things? And now I, particularly get excited when somebody says, "Oh, I want to take my faith voice forward." But no matter who you are, if you want to operate in the digital space, then Voices Activated is going to help you.
Yeah, I totally understand. And also, like, not only faith, people wants to, like, their voice needs to be heard. Everyone's story is different, and we oftentimes, like, we don't know how to tell our own story, right? So I have, like, a really interesting story. I originally from Bangladesh, moved to UK when I was 16, lost both of my parents age 13 within 3 months time. So coming here, struggling through, looking for different kind of jobs and starting different kind of businesses, being like who I am right now sitting with you. And so your journey is completely different. 40 years of experience in business world, but it's not always smooth straight line. The ups and down you have gone through, even though during the COVID your business model been changed so much, right? So you adapting and you learning, and people like that. Like, I see it like the most performing podcast is like when I interview someone with their personal journey, how they overcome certain obstacles, the ups and downs, how when about to give up, they didn't give up, they follow through and continuously growing themselves and push through. So, but many people have great stories, and they just stepping back. They don't want to show up and not even telling their own children or family, friends. Like, a few of my relatives, I know, like, they have tremendous amount of story, and I don't even know it. Like, we've been with for my own life, and they don't even want to express it. We have to hear it from someone else who's seen them. I was like, why don't you tell that? Like, this is a lesson. We lesson takes from the textbook, but the greater lesson is like hearing from someone. So one year conference or your events, when someone go to, like, how do they express? Is there any kind of skill set you need to express yourself and tell your own story so you can connect with the business and personal life?
I don't think there is. I think we all have a story, which you just mentioned, and I loved hearing a bit of your story. And I think that makes the point that our conversation just got more interesting, and I know more about who you are just from the bit you told me. And so that's the whole point. So everyone has that story. And what I want to do with these new conferences and our training program is to help people bring all of that forward, because they go, I know I have a story and I want to tell it, but they might not know, how do I start a podcast? How do I write a book? All these things seem so overwhelming, and they were overwhelming for me. And now I've, been down that journey. My book is about to be done. And so I can't wait to have that in the world and show it. But the podcast and these other things, it takes a lot of work to learn those skills. And so I think everyone has a voice. They just need help to move it forward.
Yeah, so true. So is there any particular advice you can give in terms of, like, if someone is wants to start business or career they always been dreaming of, and there is some negative talk that's holding them back? What would be like your advice with your 40 years of experience?
Yeah. Well, I tell my kids, and all my children are in their 20s, and all their friends, whenever they say things like that to me, I just say, just jump, man, just jump. I'm a broken record saying that. And this is interesting the way faith ties in too, because I think overcoming your fear to jump, it's still hard, but it's so much easier when you have a faith in something larger than yourself, to say, hey, God is with me and God is for me, and if I jump, He's going to help me, as long as my mission is, there's some integrity and purpose. And we're not doing anything wrong. We're just going after something righteous. and God will get behind me and push. And so, entrepreneurship is just about jumping when you don't have, you're never going to have good information. You just
Yeah.
have to be brave and go.
Yeah, it was so true that like without like a God's help, and you cannot do everything on your own because something like is beyond you. Because a lot of people says to me like when they started out, they cannot manage like one or two people employees, but as they grow, they managing like thousands of employees and everything working smoothly. But you cannot do that on your own. Like everything needs to be perfect, and it doesn't actually make sense. There is science cannot even figure it out like how everything gonna be efficient because there will be like some leak there, some problem there. So you need to go out help so you have like a successful business. Otherwise, everyone gonna be Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos. Everyone will be billionaire, trillionaire, and having like a big successful business. Because of that, there is like a who God wishes and choose. Like we have to like work on ourselves. We try our best. End of the day, the result is not in our hand. So, Matt, thank you so much for the advice. We are really coming to the end of this podcast. So, those who's listening, if anyone wants to learn more about yourself, your podcast, or the program you do, like where's the best place to find out?
Absolutely. Well, my coaching business is called Certain Success, and you can find that at certainsuccess.com. And I write a daily newsletter there. And the podcast also called Certain Success. And my new book's coming out. It's called Dirty Disciple. But all of that, certainsuccess.com, and love to connect. So thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, the pleasure was mine, Matt. Thank you so much for your time today. I wish you best of luck and best of luck with your book as well. And you have a wonderful day ahead.
Yeah. God bless, bro.
Thank you. That's a wrap, guys. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast episode with Mr. Matt. I hope you enjoyed our conversation. If anyone wants to learn more about Matt, go visit his website or you can find his newest book. He's going to come soon as well. So until then, I'll talk to you in the next episode. Take care.